Hi, Hilary. Welcome to the Retail Horror Podcast.
Hi, Michelle. I'm great. I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited. You and I met not this year, but year prior at UPP, which we've had so many great people from that. You were not a speaker, you were there for your paper line, correct?
That's correct. I was an attendee to keep learning and networking with new people.
It was such a great event. I wish so bad I could have gone. Did you go this year?
I did.
And how was it? I heard it was amazing.
It was even better.
I heard it. Somebody had said it took them almost a week to recover from it.
It was a lot to take in, a lot of learning. Great people, a lot more people there this year.
That's what I had heard. I was sad. Hopefully, I will make it this year because it's in California, so it's in my backyard.
And hopefully I'll be a speaker this year.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to talk about you have a very lengthy career and you have a new-ish card line to add to your resume. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself and let's start the chat.
Okay. I did not pick a starting point on this lengthy career path. I will say I've always wanted my own business, and my background is in art, but also architecture. So I spent many years working in architecture firms, making art on the side. And in 2007, my parents decided to open a retail store at the beach.
Mm.
And after various phone calls and emails, I'm helping them make ads. I'm helping them choose merchandise, choose artists. It's a gallery and retail store. So they asked if I wanted to help. And I was living in Arizona at the time. So I moved to North Carolina and we were building this from the ground up. We did not have a background in retail. So we learned it all on the fly.
We do
And
it sometimes.
we learned a lot. I learned a lot. And I figured this is fantastic training and learning for my own business. My father, and on my father's side, there's a lengthy history of family business. My great grandfather had started a company in like the late 1800s
Wow.
that my father eventually sold before he started this business. So that was a steel fabricating company, Meehan Steel Products Company in Ironton,
Mm.
Ohio. Always has a piece of my heart.
Mm.
And we grew the business. Found after the first couple of years, we weathered the 2007, 2008 recession, and I found a new location for us in a better spot. And so we all of a sudden sales just, I think, quadrupled in this new location we moved
Wow.
to. Suddenly we were an established business. We were growing every year, and um, through all of that, yeah, I was just busy, 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 busy. That's when I went to my first markets. Through all of this, I went to the Chicago Merchandise Mart when that was still around. It was really sweet. And then a lot of going to New York Now was my favorite. And Atlanta, after going to New York Now several times, I was like, oh, I'll just show up at Atlanta. Ooh, that is not how you do Atlanta. You need to plan Atlanta.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's funny you found New York easier than Atlanta. And this is as a buyer, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I have to ask you really quick because reading your resume, you obviously went to school for art, and you have permanent installations in Mocha. And so I want to know about that because like to me, I mean, I love art, but I fine art, it's beautiful, but it doesn't do anything for me. But like contemporary and installations, that is hands down. And the fact that you are a permanent in Mocha is one of them. Which is the other museum?
One is a music venue, a historic venue in downtown Tucson, Arizona, the Rialto Theater. I painted a 20 by 60-foot mural on their ceiling. At the
Wow.
entry, I got to drive around on a cherry picker, and
Aren't those fun?
Yeah, super fun. Literally doing this is, oh gosh, to be young is so good. Like do your installations then.
Yeah.
Um, I was working full time at an architecture firm there, and then like getting off work at 5:30 or 6, going there until 1 or 2 in the morning, for a whole week to paint that mural. The last night I was there literally all night long, and then went right back to work. Holy cow.
Oh my God.
So um I did go to Cranbrook Academy of Art in Michigan. This is after, so my first degree was in architecture, and I knew I didn't really want a desk job, but that's what an architecture job really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And after a few years, I applied to art school, and it was an amazing, terrifying, wonderful experience that also takes like 10 years to really absorb what happened. And great connections. Shortly after that, moved to Tucson because there was just, I had some great friends that had gone to school with me, that, and there was great affordable studio space there, a vibrant art community. So I got to know the people running Mocha. Anne Marie Russell was the director at the time. She was a great supporter of up and coming artists. And I had a studio through there. And so yeah, I did. I have a permanent installation. They were wall drawings. So I do these, the drawings you see on my cards are the how I draw. And that gets transferred to a wall at a huge scale. So this is where my architecture and art worlds merged to work at that scale. So I would I would draw a wall to scale and then draw my drawings on it to know how big I wanted them to be, to touch a window or to be related to the space. And they
Wow.
usually had some meaning to what the drawings were in my own vernacular. My grad thesis was a dictionary of all the drawings and what they meant to me. So
Oh, that's cool. What style of art do you do? What media?
Hilary style.
What media is it graph? I mean, for those
I do.
who,
I mean, I call it drawing. I call it all drawing. My degree is technically in print media. So that was printmaking, but also digital media. And so I love taking my drawing and then transferring it into other, like using Italio etchings. So it becomes this like super fine. It's etched in copper with acid, and then you ink it and you put it on this like delicious cotton paper. Love
wow.
that. Or mono printing. I use stencils and the oil. It's an oil-based ink you use, and use a press. And I mean, those things I just absolutely will always love, and have inspired the art that I'm using in my cards, of course.
So you decide you're going to go and live from Arizona to North Carolina, which is very different temperatures. Both get very hot. One is not very kind to curly hair, which I know because I just got back from Dallas. Oh my God, my hair was like, it was raining and it was humid and it was like, I'm like, please God, don't let my hair get wet. Please God, don't let me. And it was just like, I walked outside and got rain on it. I'm like, oh no. And it's like, Rosanna, Diana, poof. How was it getting, did you dive right in working with your parent? I mean, you were already working with them, but did you dive right in like, okay, let's go to work? Or did you like have a second to acclimate and go, see your new surroundings?
um, no, I dove right in. I was not necessarily working with my parents before this venture. I mean, I had worked with my father many years ago for a hot second, set them up on QuickBooks for the first time, actually, at Meehan Steel, because he still had like a handwritten accountant doing the little books with all the awesome pages that I have no idea what they are. So
Oh, I guess I misunderstood because you said you were helping them with
I was
by,
helping them from
okay.
Arizona for about 6 months before I moved here.
So you were
So it
kind of,
wasn't a full time, it was just a help sort of. They were like,
yeah.
they needed guidance. And so I have people say that they're a self-trained artist. Well, I'm a self-trained graphic designer. So I learned Photoshop and Illustrator and all the programs I use on my own. So I always knew how to use Photoshop to do ads and my grad thesis, like putting graphics together and making I'll do a book someday. I would love to do a book.
Yeah.
So, I also grew up in Southern Ohio, and it is humid there too. So I knew about this humidity,
Ugh.
and we vacationed here in North Carolina growing up. So we would always go to the beach. Not this same beach, but so I was, kind of aware of what I was getting into. Although this is a very small town, it is isolated. We hit the ground running because they were trying to grow this, and I showed up on December 31st, 2007, and nobody got paid for quite a while. I did live with them at the time, until we got established, until I moved us. And no, I was getting paid before we moved the business. But then once I moved the business, I was like, retail was treating us well. So
That's great. How was the difference? Was it foot traffic? Was the difference or location, foot traffic, the size? What was the difference between spot 1 and spot 2?
it's about 2.5 blocks. We are it is a tourist town. The rate of tourism has grown here over the past years. We're now 16 years in business, by the way.
Wow.
And I'm back here now. Foot traffic, yes. We are now a half a block from the river in a historic brick building. Square footage is a little bit larger, but it's only about 1,200 square feet. And I've actually built my own headquarters for Mirthos paper in the back of the store now. So I have reduced the square footage even. But just getting, we were not on the main drag. We were half a block off the main drag in an old house instead of like right
Wow.
on the main street. And so just that small difference, we were just floored with the change.
Old Southern architecture is my favorite. Living in California, we don't really have like quote old. I mean, it's like I love the South, and like because the architecture is just to die for. I mean, I would be happy as a clam there, minus.
I mean, there's plenty. Saying you love the South has a few hitches in it, but it is a great place. There's some great architecture.
Yeah. I learned it the hard way. The first time I went to Atlanta, I went with my girlfriend Jessica, who also has a podcast. We went to go source things for a showroom in the Atlanta's marketplace. So she's like, there's tons of vintage. We'll rent a cargo van and we'll go. And she and I venture off out into the hills of Georgia. And I don't really realize so we go into this antique shop, and like this, I'm standing at this thing, and it's like Song of the South book, Nazi flags. And I'm like, I'm looking around, I'm like, out loud, I'm like, oh my God, Jessica, look at this. And out comes this good old boy. And he's like, can I help you? And Jess is all, we gotta go. And she's like literally tearing me out. I'm like, what was that? And she's like, there's parts of the South, it's old, it's the way it is. And you just don't. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe. That was my first like inclination to that. Like you always know about it and you hear about it, but that was such a small percentage of the people that we ran into there. But it was very, being from California.
But they're loud. They're loud.
It was very like eye-opening from being a little California girl, because it was
yeah.
But so tell me, when you came on board with your parents, what were your parents selling at that point? What was the store? What did it have in it?
I like that question. Hold on to that for 1 second, because when I first moved here, related to the tale you just told, when I first moved here, it was before there was the whole blow up of the Confederate flag. But they were everywhere. And I designed one. I remember posting this on Facebook. I was really more active on Facebook then. And I designed it as the rainbow gay flag with the Confederate Union Jack across it. Because I mean, it was just such a shock of where I came and being here. So I remember, I mean, I never printed it, but that was.
Oh, you didn't print it?
No, it was sort of just a digital post, and got a lot of attention from friends and fans. But Part of me wants to reprint that, but also part of me does not want to contribute to that, having that
Conversation.
flag around. Okay, so merchandise, the store to this day is a blend of what I want to bring in. I've been the buyer for many, many years here. And what my parents originally started with. And they were the core roots of what we've built here, being that they were coming from Southern Ohio. So we were close to West Virginia with a lot of hand-blown glass. We had Blenko glass. We still do to this day. We had at the time, Frog Valley artisans were in West Virginia doing metal sculpture and steel work. So it was very craft based. There was someone doing hand carved wooden jewelry boxes like that were gorgeous. Hadley Pottery was in Louisville, Kentucky. So we had that. We had custom Southport and other local beaches, but that has actually priced itself out of being reasonable for us, unfortunately. They always had art. They've started getting local artists right away in the store. A lot of jewelry. We had a jewelry line, Mediterranean artists with Roman glass and actually a silversmith I knew in Tucson. I brought her jewelry in. We had Stephen Hunick. He does these wood carvings of his dogs. He's passed away, but Dog Mountain is in Vermont, and so we sell books and T-shirts and mugs of his work, and we still do to this day. So some of these are
Dog
cool.
Mountain.
Dog Mountain, yeah, he has a dog chapel there. It's really a great place.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So just this side note is when someone passes away and you're still able to sell it, does he have an estate that is continuing on the product?
He must, because the Dog Mountain and the chapel are still there, and they do events there still. I imagine it's that the T-shirts are licensed, so
Okay.
that's through a different company, and I'm sure royalties are going into his foundation.
Interesting. I've never heard of that. So I just wanted to ask you that. So it is majority sounds like gallery art. Did you venture out? Because I know bringing you in, were you always on the hunt for, like, is it artisan pieces, craft pieces, folk pieces? Is that the mainstay, or did you venture out of that at all to bring in anything else?
For sure. Actually, along with all of those things I mentioned, within the first 6 months or so, my parents had picked up Mackenzie Childs, which is a huge home decor and
Yeah.
furniture and seasonal line. It's huge. It's
Very
our
eclectic.
top brand in the store.
Mm.
We had Claire Murray hand hooked wool rugs that she's out of Nantucket. We do not have those anymore, and we had some other like merchandise brands, sort of tabletop and decor. We always did seasonal. I mean, we've always done really well with seasonal. I've tried to have handbags here, and handbags do not work for us. It is hilarious.
Yeah.
But
Interesting, because jewelry does sell, but like as far as like accessories as a category, but bags don't. Interesting. I wonder what's your take on why?
we are okay. We are really an eclectic and colorful and happy place. So I do have one line, Bungalow 360. She's based in California, and
Yeah.
her bags have sea creatures, but dogs, but cows, and all kinds of prints on them. They're very playful. They're very fun. They're a great price point. And we've had those for years and years and years. So I can't say we don't. That's not a fine handbag,
Yeah.
according to the big fancy. So I've brought in some leather lines that were like artisan made in Savannah and just tanked. And I guess it's the price point, you know.
Oh, what's your medium price point? Where do you top out at?
I mean, we've had artwork up to $5,000
Wow.
in here. And I have art prints out there right now that are $12. So We do go all across the board. We've always liked we don't want art to be a scary experience. We want it to be like uplifting, joyful. Don't be afraid of art. Just come on in and have fun. And
I love that. I love that thought.
yes, that's my own mentality on art anyways. Like if you like it, get it. If it makes you happy,
Yep.
art is so good for you. It really is. Huge proponent. And if you love it, don't worry. You don't have to explain it to anybody. Just put it on your wall.
It's funny because when I think about it, like, because I love art galleries, but more often than not, they're not the most welcoming. Like they definitely make it's like I thought it was bad working at Fred Siegel sometimes, where how some people would like, and my team, I would even have to tell them like, you have no idea what they do or what they make, and guaranteed they make more money than you do. So like, stop. But it's
You can't judge anybody.
no, and it's but you go into sometimes you go into like I was in Scottsdale and we walk into a art gallery and like no one, there's no greeting there. It's literally Santa Fe, same thing. I did like I was working on a gallery there actually as a client. I went and toured the other galleries just so I could see what other people did. And there was one that they were so incredibly knowledgeable and helpful. It was like almost like going to a museum, the experience and them talking to you about the artist. The other ones, so standoffish, where, like it was not your thought, like art is fun. It was not fun at all. It was actually, I wanted to get out of there so bad. And I love going to museums and I love going to galleries, and especially ones that have gallery gardens. Like, I think that's the best way to spell it. But if it doesn't feel fun, it just feels, to be honest, like work.
Hmm. I've been in those places. There's a reason for them. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe they are judging. Maybe they say, "Oh, you don't have $12,000 for this painting."
Well,
I
I
don't
don't,
know.
so they were probably right, but still, would have been
I
nice.
mean,
Hello.
every person that comes to my jewelry counter, I encourage them to try on whatever they want,
I
no
love that.
matter how expensive that is. I just tell them, you know what I tell them? The jewelry loves to be tried on. And they immediately light up like, yes, okay, I will try this one. And you got to get it in their hands. You got to put things in. And I take things off the wall for people to look at up close. People that live locally, I let them take it on trial to see how it fits in their house. If they don't like, if it's that saves me the credit card fees of selling it and then returning it.
That's
So,
great. That's a great incentive.
and yeah, I think just being welcoming. I mean, for me, especially with a background in printmaking and print media, this is a medium that is designed to be repeated. Even though a fine art print, as in print like an intaglio or also known as an etching, these are limited edition. They are considered one-of-a-kind pieces, but they are a more affordable piece to bring into a collection in that manner. Like
What is the name of that again? At something?
intaglio,
Italia.
Intaglio. It's an Italian word, an etching process, and that with fine art lithography and other or screen printing, serigraphy, never mind. These are all mediums that are designed like wildly famous artists have all worked in these medium. Because it's not the one of a kind of a painting or a giant sculpture. So that's a whole nother lesson on all of the artists that have worked in printmaking.
I just love hearing. I'm sure because
And a lot of our works we have here are reproductions, like a giclée is a museum quality reproduction. So it's been scanned or photographed and it's reproduced so that the artists are offering that at a lower price point, but it's still like the level of quality that will go into a museum. It will not fade or yellow. It's guaranteed for like 100 some years. And so, and then we have originals and we have crazy fish and recycled license plates saying signs and
how fun. And so you're doing your thing with your parents in the store. At what point do you decide that I'm going to start a card line?
Oh, that was so, after about 9 years,
Were you bored? I mean,
I was burnt out. I was
oh,
burnt out. I'm sort of a project-based or challenge-based person. I got the store solid. We had great products. We had like I had a lineup of catalogs for new things to come. We had great customers. And there's always something you can do better, of course. Um, but the store was rocking and rolling. And so the challenge was over. The challenge was keeping staff happy, keeping it. We had a great staff at the time. And I was burnt out. I had been doing it all. I was the main floor person pretty much all this time. My father was doing the accounting and bookworks in the back. So I hardly had an office to work from because so I, was doing orders from my iPhone on the floor because there's
oh,
nowhere for me to go,
oh,
or staying at home to do ordering from home before I came in. And anyways, knowing also what was missing from our business was what I can make and not having time to do it. So I took like a 5 year sabbatical. I sold a house. I moved away with the intention of starting my own business. I went to Europe a couple times. I did some sailing in Florida. I've relaxed and
wow.
tried to set up a business in Portland, Oregon. It didn't pan out and it was hard. And
Why, if you don't mind me asking?
why?
Uh-huh.
Why Portland, or why was it
Well,
hard?
why was it hard?
Well, I really didn't have any connections, getting a lease and in a real estate. I mean, I had plenty of, um, connections from the ordering, the buying I had done for years and those kind of references, of course, but, it's okay. It worked out the way it was supposed to work out. So,
Obviously. Yeah. I just had to ask
um,
because it's funny, as a side note, we are looking to move to Oregon in 3 to 5 years because Lisa, who books everybody, has moved from Hermosa Beach up there, and I'm watching her life from afar, and she's got chickens and she's surrounded by this just beautiful trees and water and land, and we don't have that here. So at least not where we're living. We're living, in a city in Redondo Beach, and we're very close to each other. And it's like, I just see that. And, I've often thought maybe I'll open a store again. And, if I'm not traveling around doing what I'm doing, like, why not? Like
I
I'm
want
on,
to come to your store.
I just figured like, why not? Like, and that's why it was more a personal question of why it didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had these grand schemes of like a studio slash store
Mm,
experience so that I would be able to making art and products. I've always wanted to do products. I've always wanted to take my art and my drawings into another thing. And I mean, I'm a Taurus. I love my physical environment and my things and very nice things. So um, it could be that in part my business plan was not solid at that point,
hmm.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, I did end up moving back east and working again at an architecture firm is the tail end of the career tail of that's where I was working when the pandemic hit, and I was laid off and in my apartment surrounded by some art supplies. For a long time it was just too heavy to imagine making something addressing this situation. And so I started making abstract art and being very, very, very looser than I'd ever been with the drawings and the color that I was using. And that's how I started making my cards. There they are. And I was like, oh, I love grading cards and I love sending mail. I love sending mail so much. I love getting mail. I
Yep.
want everybody to get mail. It makes you happy.
Yep.
It's a surprise that still exists in this world, because now that there's no like you don't go home to your answering machine for a surprise message from your friend anymore, right? Um, you can get a card in the mail. Oh my gosh.
I love pen and paper. I mean, I everything I do as far as lists for work is all on pen and paper. And like, I know all the youngins are like, just put it on your Google Calendar. I'm like, I need to see the whole calendar. I need to see everything I'm doing. And there, I cannot see. Thank you. I don't know, because I can't read books on a Nook. I need the book. I need to see how far, like I'm reading The Covenant of Water right now, and it's like 4 inches thick, and I need to see how far I've come, like in the book. Maybe it's just a Capricorn thing, like I need to know like where I progressed, but
I
it's
totally
really
understand what you're saying. That's like when you get on the terrifying water slide that's enclosed and you have no idea what's about to come. You read a book on a Kindle, because I do occasionally read some books on Kindle, and it's like a free for all. I have no idea how long this is going to last.
yeah.
You know?
That was so funny. So you start doing art during the pandemic. When you say you were looser, what does that mean? Because I'm not an artist. I'm a visual artist, but I'm not pen to paper. My brother is a very well-known graphic artist. He's had art gallery showings here in Los Angeles, and he does graphics now for like a big firm that does t-shirts for a bunch of surf companies, whatnot. But I don't understand, because we don't talk. I don't understand how art works. Like if you sit down to start painting or drawing, or what is loose and what is not loose look like? What is it, just the
Sure.
feeling you're in, or?
Yeah. Yes, in part, and just giving yourself that permission to make a freaking mess. And
Just go.
sometimes it's just a mess, and sometimes that mess is absolutely delightful. So, and I've brought that energy into Mirthos 100%. Like, life is a mess sometimes. It is. And
Yes,
it's a
ma'am.
gorgeous mess. It's a gorgeous mess. So anytime you're trying to wear that facade out in the world, you are cleaning up the mess that you might as well embrace.
I love
um
that.
so yeah, I mean, I've always done like line drawings of, and especially of objects. I love objects. I love drawing them. And in the past, I would be very meticulous about making that edge super painted, nice and perfect, and everything was like the same thickness, and there was a very flat background color and a very perfect edge, or it was only black and white and things like this. So I started using oil, not even oil pastels, but like these giant oil sticks that's like oil paint in a whole giant crayon, like
Wow.
6 inches long. And I love them. They smell delicious and they're just crazy a mess. And so drawing with those, and then instead of just a solid background, using abstract, sort of like this, using a palette knife, like a squishing paint across the whole page, and then working from there. So
How cool.
it's fun. I mean, I like to surprise myself as well. So this is part of this, like, I don't want to be bored by what I'm doing.
I mean, I think artists think and see things much differently than, I mean, my dad was an engineer, which, is very numbers, meticulous. I am so not that person at all. My mom she wasn't an artist, but she was our school teacher. She made us like Santas out of toilet paper containers and like hand cut each look. So I grew up around that. So I guess that's the reason. But sitting down, like I did a project for somebody. I was hired to create a candle line for one of my retailers during the pandemic. And I knew what I wanted the candle not to look like. And it was an intention candle, crystal base, which most of them are like witchy. And I want it to be modern and fresh. And so I went with the intention of doing watercolors, and I did an ombre, which I got, but that's not what I call, like, when I look at art and I look at like someone drawing something, or even abstract, do you know Kelly O'Neill?
I know.
He's one of my friends. He's a very well-known artist, and he does a lot of abstracts. And I think it's Kelly O'Neill Official, and I watch him because he'll film and he does giant murals. And I always wonder what is going on in your head. Like, you spray something, and then you take the putty knife and it's incredible to me. And it's like, it's very much, artists are very different than I think the way a lot of us think, because you can just flow, and whatever flow looks like, I don't know, but it's incredible to hear about how that works.
Flow is the best. I will say that. And sometimes it takes a long time to get there or be in the right space for it. And like what you were saying with your friend, like, how do you know this or that, or why you squish this? I mean, sometimes, you have a rough idea. You've had a conversation with your material. So you've played with this material. I call it playing. You're experimenting. You're seeing, like, this is a very viscous, this is a very dry material, like how they feel and how they work together, and how, like, the knife or the scraping or whatever is going to happen to it. And so you do have a sense of that language after you play with it for a while, to get to know approximately, if that makes sense, what you might get. I don't know. I just love surprises. And yeah, I think I just went off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So you start your card line now, and now we're still in the pandemic. When do you decide that this is, and how do you decide what product you're going to turn your abstract paintings into?
It immediately was greeting cards.
You knew right away.
Yeah, well, so I wasn't here at the store, but the store was being operated by my sister, and she was the new owner. My parents had finally retired. I had left, and so my sister was here. I was already selling artwork here. I mean, anytime I had some new drawings or different paintings, I always sent them down or brought some things when I came down here. So I started making these, like, literally handmade cards. If you start, I've read a lot of origin stories. I love reading how people start and what they started with. So yes, these were literally hand painted. I went to a socially distanced paper source and got some embossing, gold embossing powder with a heat gun, and, like, hand wrote some words on them, and or drawings on them, and like, you melt that and it makes this, like, glossy gold on it. So I knew I wanted to have these luxe elements mixed with it from the get-go. So I've wrangled it in some from those early days. Mirthos was not really invented until 2022. Those early days, just, I was selling one-offs, seeing what was going on. And by the end of 2020, I did have a small collection I printed for the first time, and manufactured, and sold those at some Christmas art fairs and here at Lantana's, and some other stores and galleries nearby. So
So when did you start doing trade shows? Because you've attended them as a buyer. Doing them, setups, the whole thing is very different and very fucking long ass days. I feel for, like, I'm very lucky. My temp booths or my showrooms, I go in, I set it up, I make it look pretty, and then I go. I don't have to stay and sell. And a lot of times I've had people here where, it's their line, they're setting up the booth, then they have to stay and sell, and then take people out at night, and then they have to break it down, and then they go to another show right after that. Like, so tell us about the experience of going from the fun job, which we all know, to doing, it's still fun, but it's a hell of a lot more schleppy.
well, I also knew, in starting a greeting card company, a stationery line, that I definitely wanted to focus on wholesale. I knew that because of going to be a buyer, and, like, knowing that I wanted to have my work there and get my work nationwide. My work is not necessarily specific to my area. My voice and my style has already been accepted, like, brought in nationwide. Just, we're still growing that, but yes, it's all over the country for sure. So that's great. And it's hard. You're not just waking up like, oh, I'm gonna go buy some things and take
You're
a
gonna
break.
have a leisurely breakfast.
Oh yeah, they're gonna wine and dine me. I get to just buy and think about it. So the setup is hard. And
How did you
I've
even know what to do for your first show? I mean, like, you get you sign up and you get the packet. Like,
My very first trade show was Noted in 2022. So it's they had started Noted through the Greeting Card Association, maybe around 2018 or 19. No, maybe later. As I was researching in 2020 for my line, I realized the National Stationery Show had gone away. Like it was the last year, or 2019 was the last year. And I was like, but I want to be there. You have to be at the National Stationery Show. What am I going to do? I mean, I'm looking up hashtag NSS 2017 and seeing people's booths and card lines and
oh,
doing a lot of research like that. I mean, that's also how I was learning. So Noted was started by the Greeting Card Association, somewhere in the 2018 to 19 range. I'm a member. I should probably know this. And they did one in Brooklyn in 2020, I think, and then the whole world shut down. 2021, they did virtual, and I was not part of. So 2022 was they brought it to San Francisco, and they did a miniature San Francisco Noted that was co-located with it. That was also true this year. So they're trying to grow this as a West Coast market.
it was paired up with San Francisco Now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco Now and Noted ran together. I was gonna try and go to that, not last show, the show before, but it didn't work out. But sounds like it's it sounds like this year was great as well.
It's growing. It is growing, and it's really become that stationery show, which is fantastic. I mean, there are quality buyers there. They are ready to place orders. They love seeing things in person, of course. So, and they make that easier as an entry point. It's pre-made booth. The walls are there for you. Easy to walk in with a suitcase and put your things on the wall.
Mm.
You can upgrade to paint. You do have to pay for paint and Noted, which is pricey. But you can do some decoration and things. They give you a table and a chair. I mean, it's just like put it on the wall and you're there. I did a new makers pitch program the first time I was there. So this was my very first show. Did a pitch program.
What's a pitch program?
So they had some great buyers and reps that you, as a new maker,
Oh,
come up with you have 5 minutes to do an elevator pitch, or it's a pretty large elevator pitch with about a minute and a half of questions at the end to see what they have, what their questions are for you. So I had a rock star panel of people that was great.
I love that. I love that I mean, I don't know any, but I'm not a maker though, but I haven't heard of any other shows doing that kind of pitch, which I think is brilliant for, especially with as many new manufacturers that are out there that, like I said, go to market and don't really have an idea of who their key audience is. They just put this together. Like, what a great way to get feedback.
It was. And forcing me to really hone in on what my voice is, what I want to say to these people, and why they should consider bringing in my line. Two of the people I had pitched to did place orders at the show, so that was great. They also do a pitch to big box stores, and they do a pitch for makers of color. So that is all put together by the Greeting Card Association. And this is one of the advantages. And there's they make it fun. They make it really fun there. It's a great show. And then the following year I did New York Now, or that would be this past January. I did New York Now for the first time and Noted again.
For Greeting Card Association, can anyone join that? Or do you have to be a maker, or how does that can retailer, how does that work?
Yeah, they do have retail members for sure.
So I'm going to have a link in our
show notes. They have retail members, they have associate members, they have manufacturing members, they have and then makers, small and large. I mean, Hallmark's there, and
wow,
I Lean and Tree, and a Calypso, and a lot of big big makers are there.
That's great. I love that. So we'll have that in the show notes. So tell me give us your elevator pitch of what your line is, because I've seen some of it and I have to tell you, I love the Pride ones that you did so much. Like they were so fantastic. Give everyone a pitch to who you are as a brand and, your line.
I was sort of asking for this, wasn't I?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's 90% of the people that listen to us are retailers. And it's like
Okay.
for those retailers who are listening, if you don't sell cards now, I can tell you right now, it's the easiest way to turn numbers. Like I have retailers and we have card sections. I'm like, okay, and this is the beginning when I didn't really realize the value of like how much numbers they churn, but it's like, okay, let's pull up your numbers. Like, cause I'm like, of course, looking at like, can I get rid of this rack or can we, and serendipity, she pulls up she goes, oh my God, I had no idea it's my number one department. And I'm like, okay, well, it looks like we're going to expand it then. But for retailers that are listening, it's like, if you don't sell cards, it's such an easy purchase. And if you have a little rack next to your counter, it's like you're buying a gift, you grab a card. Usually people buy more than one card because I need to keep a couple. Like, so give us your pitch, Hilary, because all the retailers are listening.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hilary Meehan, the owner and founder of Mirthos Paper. Mirthos Paper was created to free your heart into the universal ether where your soul breathes poetry back into your cells. Our current delivery system is lavish, eccentric, and earnest stationery. Please use excessively. This is my poetic pitch. And then I'll just talk real for a moment. I love mail. I add a lot. I have metallic cards. I have foiled cards. They're all on a really heavyweight stock. They use a Euro flap, like the deep V invitation style envelope. So these are a high quality experience and they are a wild visual. So
do you have any right now that you can show for the people that are watching?
Are people watching this? I didn't even know this.
It's YouTube it's funny. I was like, let's put our podcast up on YouTube if people want to listen to it. And it's like, since we just decided to throw it up there, there's a big podcast brand called Dear Media, and they just started putting all there. And it's funny because I listened to another podcast and she's like, don't put it up there, it's not worth it. But I look at the numbers each week and they grow, and especially for just this, is that if you're sitting there and you are watching, like, what do they look like? Or are you in the store?
Sure.
So show some of your cards. I'm getting tongue tied.
Okay, that's fantastic, because it was weird for me to come to a podcast where I'm talking about a visual product and not showing.
Yeah.
So I will say, let's see. This is a marketing piece I did speaking to the Life is a Gorgeous Mess. There's a card for that. And I did make this into a standalone greeting card. It is not foiled. It's just a flat printed card, but it's doing very well. It's brand new. My number one card, I'm going to have to stand up. My number one bestseller right now, and for the past year, is this rose gold foil. And
I love that
message from your fairy card mother. Wonderful everyday card, special touch with the foil. Makes people laugh, and also great reason just for an everyday card. I like a nice surprise, of course, right?
And they look like they're kind of weighty.
Oh yeah, these are thick, really good cards, really great quality. Look, it's pink on the back, comes with a pink envelope. Oh goodness, this one's a hilarious one. It's kind of got this ransom note. I call it the ransom note style. Every time and then see, hear, feel, or smell, check a box, there's a line here, and then I think of you. So you fill in your own thing to tell somebody, what reminds you of them.
I like the ransom.
So I love that interactive piece. Totally hilarious. What can I grab real quick? This is another rose gold beauty with just a bold star. Speaking to some of my abstract artwork, is used on this one.
Abstract is so good.
With a a gold
Ah,
foil
finger was right on fuck.
expletive.
That's fantastic. That is right up my alley.
And then this one has metallics. It's behind. So I use that in the word there. This is an oh wow, and it's got a gorgeous abstract metallic
Love the
back.
back. I love like
Then
the
you see how that
abstract.
just gets wrangled together with this white, but
Yeah.
inside each letter is a different, it's all got all the colors in there. I love that. We use a lot of stars as our explanation points or dots on our eyes. It's an eccentric line for sure. With a lot, I've got a lot of every day. I've got a growing birthday collection. And a bold voice, but very sincere. Like a lot of I'm not a biatch. I'm just not. I'm not that snarky person. I'm a little jaded. Okay, I'll be honest with you. So you might see that in my cards. But I am actually honestly sometimes a cheese ball. Like I'm a real honest person, and I like to send a real honest card, and sometimes hilarious card too. So there's a it's not all dirty words.
Well, I mean, everyone on the podcast has heard me talk about it several times. Is a F-bomb sell. I mean, we had
They
the
do.
owner
They
of
do.
Twisted Wear, and she was so great. But everything, and I sold Twisted Wear, and everything with an F-bomb sold and sold out.
Of course it did. I will say, okay, I also have, this is my tiny flower
That's
F-bomb.
so sweet.
Yes, it's so sweet and delicious. And look at that little cursive F-bomb with neon flowers around it. It's just so precious. So precious.
I love that.
Classic
Cute.
little bow. I
Very
love that
kitty
one.
meow. Very the pink and black. I love. Oh my
Yeah,
god, that's amazing.
pink and black are 100% our brand line colors too. This is we've come a long way, baby. Burning the bra kind of implied here with the
That
an old school based on Madonna's bra here with the bra straps on fire. Like this is a cake topper on a 1950s cake. If you're not watching this one, y'all need to come to the website and see this card.
Where do you I know I've kept you for an hour and I could keep talking to, but I two questions that I always ask everybody. Well, this is going to show after, this is going to be after the gift show because of the timeline, that how long editing and whatnot. So tell everybody where you're going to be, if you know for sure where you're going to be in January, because most likely this is going to be hitting in September.
A lot of my card friends really swear by Atlanta. I am a New York Now girl, so I'm probably going back to New York Now. I also have family in Brooklyn, so I get to stay with them or visit them. I didn't for a trade show. It's just too much to travel that far for the show, but
yeah,
they also did a great noted village, which was basically this whole row of all stationery makers this year. So that was a big draw. And I'll let you know. It might be Atlanta, and I'll definitely be noted again. So
Atlanta's good. It's, I mean, what I will say is that there is a lot of buyers that show up for that show, like a lot.
Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's one of the biggest shows. It is very much where a lot of people for temps are brand new lines that, roll out, like this is their first show. They start there. It's less expensive than Atlanta. It's also, as a buyer, it's less expensive to do Atlanta versus New York. I love New York as a buyer, but Atlanta was bigger and it costs less to get there and costs less to stay. So I went, and Atlanta is like, I will say, I mean, I've got a special place in my heart with it because I've been going there for 18 years doing a showroom. But as a buyer, I love that show. Dallas is pretty fantastic too. I just got done doing Dallas. Dallas is pretty fantastic.
One of my other card friends that was really adamant that New York or that Atlanta was the best. She also does go to Dallas. I mean, she's got a really well-established line. I'm still growing, so I do have to spend my eggs in the right place. Yeah. I can't spend all of the eggs yet. And come and shop my
Um,
eggs.
your eggs. Okay, so
I also, yeah, I mean, I can talk forever and ever, but I need to hear more of your take, your side on how, cards work. I mean, I brought them into our brick and mortar here early on, and this town did not really have a card
yeah.
world unless you were at Walmart or the
Ugh,
pharmacy.
Target. I mean, the thing is, it's a I I love giving cards. I love getting cards. There's something about, like you said, there's something about getting a piece of mail. And I interviewed Sarah Schwartz, and she's the paper nerd. And she, like, we talked about how people don't send notes anymore. And I, for a retail on a retailer aspect, it is like I did a store in Solving, and the door, there's a big space in between the front door and where the first bit of cabinetry started because of shoplifting. But it's real estate. It's still real estate. So, I was like, instead of doing that big, massive card, because I at the pharmacies that I buy for, we have like 6 card thing, and they do insane volume. They take up such a big footprint. So if you are, for a pharmacy, it's great because it's like a lot of space. But as a small retailer, you don't have that much square footage, and every section is real estate. But you obviously can't put high end things or things that are easy to be lifted. So it was like, let's do cards here at the front door. You're going to get them when you're coming in, and someone's going to grab one on the way out. Like, let me go back and buy this. If it gets shoplifted, it's a low dollar lift item, but it's utilizing your real estate. And again, like, they sell, and it's like, it is, if for the people that have watched it, if you haven't listened to Nathan from Nathan and Co's, we filmed a Retail Horror Road Trip in his store, and that when you walk in his store, there's like I think it's like a ramp, and along the ramp, he's got cards all the way up it. And it's where he turns them all the time. He changes the sections out. I mean, it's the cards do major volume, and I never believed it. I hate to say it, because I didn't sell cards in my store when I had Fred Siegel Comfort. We didn't sell cards at Anthro. I mean, maybe little like note cards and stuff like that, but the card part of it is relatively new to me, and going in and then actually having my retailers pull numbers. It's like, proof is in the pudding. And I was like, holy shit, let's do more cards. And again, there's so many great cards. Like, I love letterpress cards, and it takes as much time to buy cards as it does to buy books, especially if you're going through decks and decks and decks. Like, Rifle is one of our accounts that I work with at the Stephen Young showroom, and looking at the decks, it's like, oh my God. Like, and I watch buyers, and it's like, there's a reason why their card buyer is a full-time buyer, because how much time it takes you to go through. But man, the best investment you can make for the least amount of money, and put it in like real estate that has this high shoplift thing. Still, you need to put stuff there. It's like, it's the best.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on cards.
Well, I've always had Mirthos in the brick and mortar here. But this February, we have a custom made wall mounted card rack, and I filled it entirely with Mirthos.
Yeah,
And Mirthos cards are selling out all the
I
time.
believe it. Yeah, I
Like,
believe it.
the more you have, the more they're going to sell, because they all coordinate really well together. I've added that bonus of cohesion, and so the whole thing just looks gorgeous when you look at it, and people come over, and I'm that kind of person. When I go and I find awesome, unique, gorgeous cards, I'm buying 12 cards.
I
I'm
know.
spending $60 or $80 on a pile of greeting cards, and I keep them. I have a little bag, a special container for all my cards. Because you can't always send your own card, but this has started long before I started a card line. So
Paper obsession. Okay, your last 2 questions and these last 2 become my favorites. You are obviously very creative, and you obviously are very busy. Where do you find creativity, or where do you get inspired, or where do you find what gets you going and makes you want to go do more of what you do?
not being bored and surprising myself, are what keep me doing what I like to do, because I love surprises, like I said, and I love experimenting and learning as I go, like creating my own challenges, like this business, and how to make this really work and be a sustainable business for myself. I love this, and it is based on my own creativity. So where do I renew that creativity? I have actually thought about this because I know you asked this question, and in the past 8 months, it's been hard. I was doing Mirthos full time for about a year before I came back into the business. So right now I am getting back up to speed with running in the retail store along with my card line. And
Did you take it back over from your sister, or
I
she's
have.
still okay?
My sister left. My sister left a year last August, September. She took a new job. She just
So
took a new job.
it's just yours now.
Yes, it is.
That's great.
It is great. It is great. There was a variety of reasons that a lot of staff left, not because of the store, but because of their own lives. So it's been a whole new transition. And then that's a whole nother story on the retail front of training and retention and the exhaustion of that and trying to systemize that. So I'm getting there. I try to create moments in my downtime for to just let my mind wander. Whether it's like sometimes I do meditate, sometimes I just pull out my sketchbook and let myself just draw. Maybe it's something mundane for a long time until like something just surprises me. Um, Road trips. I love to drive. I love to listen to music. So, and I love to cook. So those are things that have like a creative element, but your brain can kind of wander while you're doing them.
Mhm. And then what is a piece of advice that you can give our listeners that are either thinking of joining a family business or opening their own business or starting their own product?
All of the above. Oh my gosh. Um, Family business. You know your family best. If you like them, you like them. Go for it. If you don't. That's you're going to be working really closely together. So hopefully you get along. Um, we've all had a lot of family businesses in both sides of my family, so I love it. Starting your own brick and mortar location is important. Love what you're selling. You're not going to only sell what you love. You have to buy other things. You have to have a range, and you cannot judge anybody. And to start a product line, there's a lot of information and resources out there. There are some online learning platforms. There are conferences like the UPP. There's literally books. Some of the places I've done some learning have really helped me with resources on manufacturers. I will say this. It is worth it to invest in some of these places where you can do some pointed learning.
Thank you so much. I love talking to you and hearing about yourself. I mean, it's like your background is amazing, and just the fact that you're back where it started now
Full
owning
circle.
it. Well,
But I also, in closing, want to tell you that your ombre candle is still a creative endeavor. Like that is still creativity, and never downplay any creative thing you do. And I want everyone to take that to heart. There is creativity in all parts of our lives, no matter what your profession or your training.
I mean,
Let
I'm
yourself
very proud of it, but I would hardly call that art. Like, I mean, really, if I'm honest. I mean,
That's fine.
when
But
I
it's still creative. It's still
yes, it
creative.
was 100% creative. I will, and that's what I loved about that, is being able to create something, all the way down to the intentions and all the way down to what crystals go back to those intentions. And again, sticking to I want it to feel a modern version of like all the granola intention candles that are out there. I really wanted it to be where a hip women's apparel could sell it. So it was a fun creative project, but I would not call myself I'm a visual artist.
Sure.
I will say that.
Sure. And I think that there's, we didn't even really go into that. As I've heard you talk about intentionality and crystals and things like that, which is in part what got me to the place where I could start this business. Saying I wanted a business of my own my entire life is totally true. And that takes working on yourself and like being it, finding that nugget inside of you and not being a reactive person and knowing how to work with different energies that flow through yourself or the people around you, and your space, and to balance all of that and to find your own like jumping off point. So I do use all of those things. I have crystals. I I have my witchy side and my woo-woo side for sure.
Girl, you don't even know. Like
but I wanted to bring my aesthetic to these ideas and also inspiring and empowering people through what I'm doing.
I love that. Thank you so much. Tell everyone where they can find you. We'll have in the show notes as well, but for those who are listening or watching, tell everyone where they can find you.
For sure. Mirthos paper is at mirthos.com, and that's Mirthos, based on the word mirth combined with pathos to evoke a feeling, but on the happy side. And I'm on Fair for wholesaling. You can also wholesale order on mirthos.com. Just email me for a password, and that's fair.com/direct/Mirthos paper.
Thank you so much.